Part 5. The New Order. 5 years after humanity's rejection of confluence classification, the galaxy looked very different. Ambassador Kang stood in the assembly hall of the Terran Compact, watching representatives from 23 different species take their seats. Some were former Tier 7 civilizations like humanity had been. Others were mid-tier species that had grown tired of confluence restrictions. All of them had chosen cooperation over hierarchy. The Terran Compact recognizes all member species as equals, Kang announced as the session began. No tiers, no rankings, only mutual respect and shared purpose. Today we welcome our newest potential member. A Vren collective representative entered the hall. It had been 8 years since the Vren had tried to claim Proxima Centauri, since they had forcibly relocated human colonists, since Colonel Imsera had shattered their fleet. The Vren moved carefully now, their multiple eyes showing something humanity had never seen from them before: humility. The Vren Collective formally apologizes for our actions against humanity, the representative said, the words clearly painful. We treated you as inferior. We paid the price. We come now not seeking forgiveness but requesting a chance to do better. Dr. Yoon Mirai, now director of the Terran Xenological Institute, studied the Vren carefully. Her job was to assess sincerity, to understand alien psychology well enough to know when they were being honest. After a long moment, she nodded to Kang. The Compact accepts your petition, Kang replied. You will undergo a probationary period. Prove through actions that you've learned, and you will be welcomed as equals. The Vren representative bowed, a gesture of respect they had once refused to show humanity. Times had changed. Captain Han Jiwoo commanded the exploration vessel New Horizon, mapping systems that the Confluence had once declared off-limits to humanity. His crew included members from 7 different species, all working together without regard to old-tier classifications. It was exactly what he had hoped for when he first met the Confluence 9 years ago. Captain, we're receiving a signal from the Galactic Core region, his communications officer reported. It's old. Really old, Jiwoo studied the data. The signal was using a technology that predated the Confluence by thousands of years. Ancient civilization? More than that, sir. I think we just made contact with the precursors. The discovery sent shockwaves through both the Compact and the Confluence. Ancient species, far older than any current galactic power, had been sleeping in the core systems. Humanity's exploration had awakened them. High Arbiter Queln arrived on Earth to discuss the situation with President Nam. The precursors established the First Galactic Order, Queln explained. They disappeared 10,000 years ago. If they're awakening now, everything could change. Why did they disappear? Nam asked. Queln hesitated. According to our oldest records, they grew tired of maintaining rigid control. They felt the galaxy needed to develop on its own. But before they left, they warned that if civilization became too stagnant, they would return. Nam smiled slightly. And you think humanity waking them is connected to that warning? I think, Queln said carefully, that the precursors may see in humanity what I see. A species that refuses to accept limitations, that adapts and changes, that breaks stagnant systems. Perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needed. The Trinary Alliance, once so confident in their superiority, sent a formal request for economic cooperation with the Compact. Their defeat by humanity had been devastating not just militarily but economically. Human trade routes were faster. Human technology, developed through necessity rather than slow, careful progress had leapfrogged confluence standards in several areas. They don't want to join us, Admiral Choi Davin observed, reading the request. They want access to our trade networks, which we'll give them, President Nam replied. On fair terms. We're not interested in domination. We're interested in cooperation that actually works. The sovereign dominion was fragmenting. Several of their colony worlds, seeing how humanity treated its partners with respect rather than subjugation, had requested Terran protection. The Dominion's 5,000-year empire was crumbling, not because humanity had destroyed it, but because their own people were choosing alternatives. Colonel Imsera, now a general, led peacekeeping operations in former Dominion space. It's strange, she told Davin during a briefing. We beat them militarily, but we're winning the peace by being kind, by treating their refugees well, by helping them rebuild without demanding submission. That's because we remember what it's like to be underestimated. Davin replied. We remember how the Confluence treated us. We're determined to be better. The Galactic Confluence faced a crisis. 40% of their member species had left to join the Compact or other alternative organizations. Their authority was eroding. The old tier system, once accepted as natural law, was now openly questioned. Quellen met with the Confluence Council in a closed session. We must reform, he argued passionately. The humans have shown us that our system was flawed. Species don't develop in neat linear progressions. Capability can't be measured by technology alone. We must change or become irrelevant. The system has worked for thousands of years, the head counselor protested. The system worked because no one challenged it, Quellen corrected. Humanity challenged it and won. Now dozens of other species are following their example. We can either evolve or watch the galaxy move past us. The vote was close, but reform won. The Confluence announced a complete restructuring of the tier system. No more rankings. No more development restrictions. Instead, they would offer cooperation, knowledge sharing, and mutual support to any species that wanted it, without demanding submission to an arbitrary hierarchy. It was, essentially, the model humanity had proposed with the Compact. The Confluence was adopting the ideas of a species they had once ranked Tier 7. Dr. Yoon Mirai published a paper that became widely distributed across the galaxy. The fallacy of linear development examined how the Confluence's classification system had assumed all species developed along the same path. Humanity's success, she argued, came from developing differently, from maintaining emotional connections that the Confluence saw as primitive, but that actually provided motivation and unity. We were ranked low because we didn't fit their pattern, she wrote. But the pattern was the problem, not humanity. The galaxy is vast and diverse. There is no single path to advancement. The species that succeed are those that adapt to their unique circumstances, not those that follow someone else's template. Captain Jiwoo's expedition to the galactic core returned with astounding news. The precursors, after meeting with humanity and studying recent galactic events, had decided not to reimpose order. Instead, they were pleased. You remind us of ourselves, the precursor representative told the assembled Compact members. Young, energetic, unwilling to accept limitations. We left because the galaxy had become too comfortable, too structured. We hoped someone would shake things up. You exceeded our hopes. President Nam stood before a joint session of the Compact and the Reformed Confluence. Representatives from over 100 species filled the hall. 5 years ago, humanity rejected the tier system. We were told we were making a mistake, that without hierarchy there would be chaos. Instead, we found cooperation. We found that respect works better than rank, that partnership is stronger than dominance. She paused, looking around the chamber. The Vren attacked us and we defeated them. Then we let them join us as equals. The Trinary Alliance tried to crush us and we shattered their fleet. Then we offered them trade. The Sovereign Dominion sent 800 ships to subjugate us. We broke their military might. Then we helped their refugees. We did these things not because we're weak, but because we're strong. Strong enough to choose mercy. Strong enough to choose cooperation. The chamber was silent. The galaxy has a choice now, Nam continued. Continue the old ways, where might makes right and hierarchy determines value. Or try something new. Work together as equals. Share knowledge freely. Compete in trade and ideas, not violence and subjugation. The Terran Compact is open to any species that chooses this path. Kang watched from the diplomatic section as, one by one, species representatives stood to indicate their support. Some were former Confluence members. Others were newly spacefaring civilizations that had watched humanity's rise with hope that there was room in the galaxy for them too. Admiral Davin stood in the command center that had once been built to defend Earth from superior forces. Now it coordinated peaceful operations across dozens of systems. Do you think it will last? Colonel Sarah asked him. The peace? The cooperation? Davin considered. It will last as long as we remember what we learned. That being strong means you can afford to be kind. That winning the war matters less than winning the peace. That the best way to make friends is to treat people with respect, even people who once were enemies. And if someone threatens it? Davin's smile was gentle, but his eyes were hard. Then we remind them why humanity went from Tier 7 to shaping the galaxy in less than a decade. We're peaceful. We're cooperative. Part 2. The Incursion. 3 years had passed since humanity's classification as Tier 7. On the surface, Earth had accepted the confluence's judgment. Publicly, Ambassador Kang spoke about patience and long-term development. Behind closed doors, something else was happening. Admiral Choi Davin stood in the command center of the Terran Defense Initiative, a facility built deep beneath the mountains of South Korea. Holographic displays showed the movements of alien ships throughout human-adjacent space. In the past 3 years, 17 different species had filed resource claims on systems near Earth. Most had been content with automated mining operations. The Vren Collective was different. Status report, Davin said calmly. Colonel Imsera stepped forward. She was compact and fierce with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The Vren have escalated. They're no longer just mining. They've established military outposts on Proxima Centauri B and the settlements in the Alpha Centauri system. Our colonists are being forcibly relocated. How many people? 14,000, sir. The Vren claim they're indigenous fauna complications that need to be moved for operational efficiency. Davin's jaw tightened. And the confluence? We filed formal protests. The response came back this morning. Sarah pulled up a message. The confluence sides with the Vren. They say our colonies are not recognized territorial claims because we lack expansion rights. The Vren are operating within legal parameters. In another part of the facility, Dr. Yoon Mirai was analyzing Vren tactical data. Over the past 3 years, she had shifted from xenobiology to intelligence analysis. She understood now that knowing how aliens thought was just as important as understanding their biology. They're arrogant, she told Davin when he came to her lab. The Vren have been a Tier 3 species for over 1,000 years. They've never faced serious resistance. Look at their fleet positioning. She highlighted the hologram. They're spread out, relying on their technology advantage. They don't even have proper defensive formations. Can we take them? Davin asked directly. Mirai smiled. It was not a kind expression. Yes, easily. The question is what happens after. That night, Davin met with Earth's government leadership in a secure conference. The situation is clear. The Vren are testing us. If we do nothing, others will follow. If we respond through confluence channels, we'll be ignored. We have one option. Military action, the Prime Minister said quietly. Against a Tier 3 species. Against a Tier 3 species that thinks we're primitives, Davin corrected. They're not expecting resistance. We've spent 3 years preparing for this exact scenario. The decision was made. Operation Silent Echo was authorized. Colonel Sarah led the strike force personally. 12 ships using stealth technology that the confluence didn't know humanity possessed. The Vren had evaluated Earth's technology 3 years ago and assumed they knew everything. They didn't know about the rapid development that happened when humans had something to prove. The Vren fleet around Proxima consisted of 40 vessels. They were large and powerful, equipped with energy weapons and shields that could withstand conventional attacks. They had no scouts out, no patrol patterns. They simply sat in orbit, confident in their superiority. Sarah's ships approached in complete silence. Human stealth tech didn't try to hide heat or energy like alien systems. Instead, it scattered sensor returns, making the ships appear as background radiation or space debris. By the time the Vren realized what was happening, it was too late. The attack was surgical. Human missiles, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, struck from multiple angles. But these weren't standard explosive weapons. Human engineers had developed something different. Electronic warfare packages that overwhelmed Vren computer systems. The alien ships went dark, their weapons offline, their shields fluctuating. Then came the boarding teams. This was the part that terrified the Vren. Humans in combat armor, moving through their ships with practiced efficiency. The Vren were physically stronger, but humans fought differently. They used terrain, worked in perfect coordination, and employed tactics the Vren had never encountered. What are these creatures? A Vren commander transmitted in panic, his message intercepted by Sarah's team. They're everywhere at once. The psychological warfare was deliberate. Humans had studied Vren biology and culture. They knew what scared them. Flickering lights, sounds in the dark, enemies that appeared from unexpected directions. Within hours, several Vren ships surrendered without firing a shot, their crews too terrified to fight. The entire operation took 3 days. 30 Vren ships were captured intact. 8 were destroyed. 2 escaped, fleeing back to Vren space with wild reports of human capabilities. The human colonists were rescued without casualties. The Vren military presence in the system was completely eliminated. The galaxy's reaction was immediate and confused. The Vren Collective filed an emergency complaint with the Confluence. A Tier 7 species had attacked them. This was unprecedented. This violated the natural order of things. Ambassador Kang stood before the Confluence Council, his demeanor completely different from 3 years ago. He was calm, almost casual. The Vren forcibly removed our citizens from their homes, he said simply. We removed the Vren from our space. It seems fair. You attacked a Tier 3 species, the Arbiter protested. Your military capabilities were assessed. This shouldn't have been possible. Your assessment was 3 years ago, Kang replied. Humans develop quickly when motivated. Perhaps your evaluation process needs revision. The Vren representative, still shaken from the reports, demanded compensation and punishment. Kang's response was cold. Your forces entered our space. You displaced our people. You relied on Confluence law to protect you while you acted aggressively toward a species you considered inferior. You made assumptions. He paused. Those assumptions cost you 30 ships and considerable pride. Consider that compensation for the suffering you caused our colonists. The Confluence chamber erupted in debate. Some species were outraged. Others were intrigued. A few were very, very quiet, recalculating their own plans for human-adjacent space. High Arbiter Queln called for order. He was from an ancient species, had served the Confluence for centuries, and had never seen anything like this. A Tier 7 species defeating a Tier 3 force decisively. The mathematics didn't work. The system didn't allow for this. This will be investigated thoroughly, Queln announced. The Vren were clearly incompetent in their military operations. The ranking system remained sound. But Queln didn't believe his own words. He had reviewed the tactical data. The humans hadn't won through luck or Vren incompetence. They had won through superior strategy, better adaptation, and a level of aggression that the Confluence's peaceful species had forgotten was possible. Back on Earth, Admiral Davin met with his staff. This was just the beginning. The Confluence will dismiss it as an anomaly, but others will see opportunity. They'll think we got lucky. They'll think the Vren were weak. Let them think that, Sarah said, a slight smile on her face. Let them come and find out for themselves. Mirai was less optimistic. We've shown our hand. They know we're not helpless now. No, Davin corrected. They know we're not as helpless as they thought. They still don't know what we're truly capable of. They won't know until it's too late. The Vren Collective withdrew from all human-adjacent systems within the week. Officially, they cited operational complications. Unofficially, the survivors spoke in hushed tones about humans who fought like demons, who seemed to anticipate every move, who won not through superior technology, but through something the Vren couldn't quantify. On the Confluence station, Ambassador Kang had one final meeting with a group of minor species, other low-tier civilizations who had watched humanity's actions with great interest. How did you do it? One asked. Kang's smile was gentle, but his eyes were hard. We remembered something the Confluence has forgotten. Being peaceful and being harmless are not the same thing. Humanity is very peaceful. We are not harmless. The galaxy is about to learn the difference. Part 4, the reassessment. 2 years had passed since the Trinary Alliance's defeat. The Galactic Confluence could no longer ignore the human situation. High Arbiter Queln had pushed for an emergency reassessment, presenting evidence that the original Tier 7 classification was fundamentally flawed. The Council had reluctantly agreed. President Nam Jinha of the United Earth Government stood before the Confluence Tribunal. She was tall and composed, with the bearing of someone who had led humanity through its most challenging period. Unlike Ambassador Kang 3 years ago, she did not come seeking approval. She came because the Confluence had requested her presence. We have reviewed humanity's recent military actions, the head counselor began. Your victories against the Vren and the Trinary Alliance are unprecedented for a Tier 7 species. We must reevaluate your classification. Must you? Jinha replied coolly. Or are you concerned that your classification system is revealed as inadequate? There was uncomfortable silence in the chamber. No one spoke to the Confluence Council this way, but humanity had earned the right through blood and victory. Queln stepped forward, his ancient form moving with careful dignity. President Nam, I have spent 2 years studying your species. I believe the original assessment was wrong. Not slightly wrong, fundamentally wrong. Your people should never have been Tier 7. Then what should we have been? Jinha asked. That is what we are here to determine. But not everyone in the confluence agreed with reassessment. The Sovereign Dominion, a Tier 2 species that had ruled their sector of space for 5,000 years, saw humanity's rise as a threat to the established order. If a species could jump from Tier 7 to higher ranks through military action, what did that mean for the entire system? The Dominion's representative, a being of energy contained in a crystalline form, addressed the council with absolute confidence. The human situation must be corrected, not rewarded. They have used violence to circumvent proper development. They must be taught that there are consequences for disrupting galactic order. Consequences? Jinha's voice was soft but dangerous. Are you threatening humanity? I am stating reality. The Dominion will launch a corrective action. We will demonstrate that true power lies with the properly advanced species. This is not a threat. It is an educational opportunity. Admiral Choi Daven received the intelligence hours later. The Sovereign Dominion was assembling the largest fleet humanity had yet faced. 800 vessels commanded by war primes with thousands of years of military experience. This wasn't an expansion fleet or a resource grab. This was a subjugation force designed to break humanity completely. They want to make an example of us, Colonel Imsara said, studying the force composition, to show the galaxy what happens when a low-tier species gets uppity. They're right about one thing, Daven replied. This will be educational, just not in the way they expect. President Nam sent an official message through Confluence channels. It was brief and direct. To the Sovereign Dominion. Withdraw your military preparations against Earth. You have not calculated the cost of this action correctly. This is your only warning. The Dominion's response came within hours. It was laughter. Ancient, arrogant laughter. A species that had ruled for 5 millennia did not take warnings from creatures who had only recently learned to leave their own planet. The subjugation fleet launched. 800 ships moving in perfect formation, representing the pinnacle of Dominion military might. They had crushed rebellions, defeated rivals, and maintained order for longer than most species had existed. They had never known defeat. They were about to receive an education in humility. Admiral Daven did not prepare a defensive strategy. Defense was for those who wanted to survive. Humanity wanted to win. Captain Lee Bora, now promoted to fleet commander, stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, humanity's newest flagship. Around her, the full strength of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet prepared for operations. All ships ready. Admiral, she reported. Then let's teach them, Daven replied simply. What the Sovereign Dominion didn't know was that humanity had developed new technology during the 2 years of relative peace. Jumpgate technology based on principles the Confluence thought were theoretical. Humans had made them practical. And they had used those 2 years to position gates throughout Dominion space hidden and dormant. The subjugation fleet was 3 days from Earth when the human attack began. But the attack didn't happen near Earth. It happened in 15 different Dominion core systems simultaneously. The Terran Expeditionary Fleet emerged from jump gates directly in orbit around Dominion worlds. Not the home world, that would have been genocidal. But military installations, shipyards, command centers, and fleet bases. The targets had been chosen carefully by Dr. Yoon Mirai and her intelligence team. Military targets only. Daven's orders were absolute. No civilian casualties. We're not here to murder. We're here to break their ability to threaten us. The attacks were surgical and devastating. Human forces had studied Dominion tactics for 2 years. They knew how the war primes thought, how their command structures worked, what they valued. The humans struck at those weaknesses with precision that shocked the ancient species. Within the first day, the Dominion lost 40% of their shipyard capacity. Within 3 days, their command and control infrastructure was in chaos. Defensive fleets scrambled to respond, but the humans were always one step ahead, jumping from system to system faster than the Dominion could coordinate a response. The subjugation fleet, 3 days from Earth, received emergency orders. Return home immediately. The Dominion was under attack. The homeworlds needed defense. The fleet commander refused at first. The mission was to subjugate humanity, to teach them their place. But as the reports kept coming, as system after system reported catastrophic damage to military assets, he had no choice. The fleet turned around and began the journey home at maximum speed. They arrived to find their empire in ruins. Not physically destroyed, the civilian infrastructure was untouched. But their military might, built over 5,000 years, had been reduced by 60% in 3 weeks. The war primes, ancient and experienced, had been outmaneuvered at every turn by a species that had only been in space for a few centuries. High Arbiter Queln arrived at the Dominion homeworld to negotiate a ceasefire. What he found shook him to his core. The mighty sovereign Dominion, a Tier 2 species, was begging for terms. President Nam, speaking from Earth, was offering them. "You attacked us to prove we were inferior," Jinha said calmly via hologram. "Instead, you've proven that tiers mean nothing. Here are our terms. Complete withdrawal from all claims in human-adjacent space, formal recognition of humanity's right to expansion, and a public acknowledgement that your subjugation fleet failed." "And if we refuse?" the Dominion ruler asked, though there was no strength in the question. "Then we continue what we started. We're currently in 15 of your systems. We can be in 50 by next week. All of them military targets. All of them critical to your defense. Eventually, you'll have no military left at all. Then you'll be at the mercy of your neighbors. And I doubt they've forgotten the last 5,000 years of Dominion order." The Dominion agreed to every term. The Confluence Council convened an emergency session. Queln stood before them, presenting the evidence that could no longer be denied. Humanity must be immediately reclassified to Tier 2, with all associated rights and privileges. They have demonstrated capability far beyond our initial assessment. "Agreed," the head counselor said reluctantly. "We formally recognize humanity as Tier 2, effective immediately." President Nam received the notification on Earth. She read it carefully, then composed her response. Ambassador Kang delivered it personally to the Council. "Humanity declines the Tier 2 classification. We decline any classification within the Confluence system. Your tiers measure what you value, not what matters. We will make our own way in the galaxy, by our own rules." The Council chamber erupted in confusion. "You can't refuse classification," one member protested. Kang smiled. "Watch us. Humanity joined the Confluence seeking cooperation and peace. We were judged inferior and treated accordingly. We defended ourselves and proved that judgment wrong. Now you offer us a higher rank within a system we no longer respect." He paused. "The Confluence is welcome to trade with Earth, to negotiate as equals, to cooperate on mutual interests. But we will not accept your authority over us anymore. That time is over." As Kang left the chamber, Queln followed him. "You're making a mistake," the Arbiter said quietly. "The Confluence maintains order. Without it, there is chaos." "No," Kang replied gently. "The Confluence maintains control. It preserves the power of old species and limits the growth of new ones. Humanity is offering something different, a chance for cooperation without hierarchy. We'll see which model the galaxy prefers." On Earth, Admiral Davin stood with President Nam watching the stars. "They'll send more forces eventually," he said. "The Confluence won't accept this." "Let them send forces," Nam replied. "We've shown that we can defend ourselves. More importantly, we've shown other species that the Confluence isn't inevitable. There are alternatives." Part 3. The Cascade. 8 months after the Vren incident, the Galactic Confluence held an emergency session. The topic was simple: the human problem. 3 Tier 4 species, calling themselves the Trinary Alliance, had requested and received approval for a coordinated expansion into human-adjacent space. They cited the Vren failure as evidence that proper force was needed to manage the primitive humans. High Arbiter. Queln watched the proceedings with growing unease. He had studied humanity extensively since the Vren defeat. The more he learned, the less the standard classifications made sense. Humans were emotional, yes, but they channeled those emotions into remarkable focus. They were tribal, but those tribes cooperated with stunning efficiency when threatened. They were aggressive, but that aggression was carefully controlled and devastatingly effective. The Trinary Alliance didn't see what he saw. They saw opportunity. They saw resource-rich systems protected only by a species that had, in their view, gotten lucky once. Admiral Choi Davin received the intelligence reports in his underground facility. The Trinary Alliance was bringing 400 warships. Not mining vessels or colony ships, warships. This was an invasion force designed to crush any resistance and establish permanent military control over 8 star systems surrounding Earth. They're not subtle. Colonel Imsera observed, studying the fleet composition. They want to make an example of us. Then we'll make an example of them, Davin replied calmly. Activate Operation Broken Chain. All assets. All theaters. Captain, Lee Bora commanded the carrier Indomitable, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. She was young for her rank, brilliant in tactics, and had a gift for seeing battles 3 moves ahead. Her ship and 5 others formed the visible human defense fleet. The Trinary Alliance would see them and calculate accordingly. What they wouldn't see were the other 40 human vessels hidden throughout the system, using advanced stealth technology and clever orbital mechanics. They wouldn't see the network of automated defense platforms disguised as debris. They wouldn't see the trap until it closed. The Trinary Alliance entered the Alpha Centauri system with overwhelming confidence. Their flagship transmitted the standard message: surrender unconditionally or be destroyed. They gave humanity 1 hour to respond. Captain Lee responded in 30 seconds. This is Captain Lee Bora of the Terran Defense Force. You have entered human-protected space with hostile intent. You have 1 opportunity to withdraw. If you do not, you will be destroyed. The Trinary commander's response was laughter. 400 ships against 6. The mathematics were clear. The battle began predictably. The Trinary fleet advanced in a standard formation, preparing to overwhelm the human ships with superior numbers. Lee's small fleet retreated, firing as they went, drawing the enemy deeper into the system. Then the trap sprung. The hidden defense platforms activated first, not firing weapons, but broadcasting false sensor data. Suddenly, the Trinary sensors showed human ships everywhere. Hundreds of them. The enemy formation broke as individual captains tried to respond to threats that didn't exist. Now, Lee ordered quietly. The actual human fleet emerged from hiding, but not where the Trinary expected. They came from above and below the orbital plane, using the system's asteroid belt for cover, and they didn't engage in a traditional ship-to-ship battle. Instead, they went after the enemy command structure. Dr. Yoon Mirai had analyzed Trinary communication protocols for months. She knew how their command hierarchy worked. The human attack focused on the ships containing Trinary admirals and command staff. Advanced missiles programmed with Mirai's intelligence data hunted those specific vessels with deadly precision. Within the first 10 minutes, the Trinary Alliance lost its top 5 commanders. Their carefully planned formation collapsed into chaos as individual captains tried to take command without coordination. Then came what the humans called the Ghost Protocol. Captain Lee's carrier and its escorts took catastrophic damage, or so it appeared. The ship's hulls breached, atmosphere venting, power readings dropping to 0. The Trinary fleet, seeing the human command ship destroyed, pressed their advantage. But the damage was faked. Lee's ship had simply gone dark, using every trick humans had developed to appear dead while remaining fully functional. For 3 hours it drifted with the debris while the Trinary fleet moved past it, focusing on the remaining human vessels. Then the Indomitable came back to life directly behind the enemy's main formation and opened fire at point-blank range. The psychological impact was devastating. The Trinary forces panicked. Their dead enemy had risen. Their sensors had lied to them. Nothing made sense anymore. The battle lasted 47 days. The Trinary Alliance had expected to overwhelm humanity in hours. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to engage on their terms. Human ships appeared and disappeared. Attacks came from unexpected angles. Every time the Trinary thought they understood the human tactics, those tactics changed. The strategic AI called Aegis coordinated the human defense. It wasn't truly intelligent, but it processed battle data faster than any biological mind. It predicted enemy movements based on cultural psychology, past battles, and real-time sensor data. It gave human commanders options, not orders, but those options were devastatingly effective. They're adapting, Sarah reported to Davin on day 12. The Trinary commanders are getting smarter. They're learning. Good, Davin replied. Now they're fighting the way we fight. That means they're on our ground, playing by our rules. By day 30, the Trinary Alliance had lost 120 ships. Another 60 had been captured through precision boarding operations. The human casualties were comparatively minimal, not because humans were superior fighters individually, but because they fought smarter. They chose their engagements carefully. They retreated when necessary. They used the environment as a weapon. The Trinary commander sent a message on day 35. "How? You're Tier 7, this is impossible." Captain Lee responded personally. "Your tiers don't measure what matters. You measure technology and cultural development. You don't measure adaptability. You don't measure determination. And you clearly don't measure tactical thinking." She paused. "Withdraw your forces. This isn't a battle you can win." The Trinary commander, proud and ancient, refused. He had centuries of military experience. He would not be defeated by primitives. On day 47, the remaining Trinary forces, fewer than 100 ships, received a direct message from their home governments. Return immediately. The war was over. The humans had won. The Galactic Confluence convened an emergency session once again. High Arbiter Quellen presented the findings to the assembled representatives. The statistics were undeniable. A Tier 7 species had defeated a coordinated Tier 4 alliance. Not barely. Decisively. "How do we explain this?" one representative asked in confusion. "We don't," Quellen replied quietly. "Our explanation would be a lie. The truth is that our classification system is flawed. We measure the wrong things." But the Confluence wasn't ready to admit systemic failure. Instead, they ruled that the Trinary Alliance had clearly underestimated their opponent and failed to adapt their tactics. The human victory was acknowledged, but categorized as an outlier. The Tier 7 classification remained. However, something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. Species that had been eyeing human space quietly withdrew their claims. Several Tier 5 and 6 civilizations sent diplomatic messages to Earth, requesting formal non-aggression pacts. The humans, they said, were clearly more capable than their tier suggested. Perhaps an arrangement could be beneficial. Admiral Davin stood in the command center watching the diplomatic requests flood in. "They still don't understand," he said to Sarah. "They think we're an anomaly, a glitch in their system." "We are," Sarah replied with a slight smile. "We're the proof that their system is broken, but they'll need more convincing before they admit it." Davin nodded slowly. "Then we'll convince them, one battle at a time if necessary." On the Confluence station, Quellen sat alone in his office, reviewing the tactical data from the battle once more. He had served the Confluence for 300 years. He believed in its mission of peaceful cooperation, of bringing order to the galaxy through understanding and structure. But watching the humans fight had shown him something disturbing. The Confluence had become soft. They had forgotten that peaceful cooperation only worked when all parties chose peace. They had forgotten that sometimes strength was the prerequisite for peace, not its opposite. The humans remembered. The humans had never forgotten. And now the galaxy was beginning to understand what happened when you underestimated a species that had spent its entire existence fighting for survival, adapting to challenges, and refusing to accept limitations imposed from outside. The cascade had begun. More species would test humanity. More would learn the same lesson. And with each lesson, the Confluence's authority would erode a little more. Quellen could see it coming, inevitable as gravity. The galaxy was about to change, and a Tier 7 species from a small blue planet was the catalyst. Part 1. The classification Captain Han Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, watching the massive station grow larger in the viewport. The Galactic Confluence Central Hub was bigger than Earth's moon, a sprawling structure of silver and crystal that housed representatives from hundreds of alien species. This was humanity's moment. First contact had happened 3 months ago, and now they were here to join the galactic community. "It's beautiful," Dr. Yoon Mirai whispered beside him. She clutched her datapad tightly, her knuckles white. She had spent weeks preparing humanity's presentation, documenting their history, culture, and achievements. "Let's hope they think the same about us," Jiwoo replied. The docking procedure was smooth. As they walked through the pristine corridors of the station, Jiwoo noticed how the alien beings moved around them with barely a glance. Some were tall and crystalline. Others were small and floating in containment fields. None seemed particularly interested in the human delegation. Ambassador Kang Suho led their group into the evaluation chamber. The room was circular, with seating rising up in tiers like an ancient amphitheater. Hundreds of aliens filled the seats, their attention focused on a central platform where the humans would stand. A being that looked like flowing water in a vaguely humanoid shape addressed them. Its voice came through translation devices everyone wore. Humanity of Earth. You have requested admission to the Galactic Confluence. You will now undergo the standard evaluation process. This will determine your tier classification and your rights within Confluence space. Kang stepped forward confidently. We are honored to be here. Humanity has much to offer the galactic community. The evaluation took 6 months. Teams of alien assessors visited Earth, examined human settlements on Mars and the Moon, interviewed thousands of people, and analyzed every aspect of human civilization. Mirai worked tirelessly, showing them humanity's art, science, and philosophy. Engineer Park Hyun demonstrated their technology, explaining how humans had achieved faster-than-light travel through innovative engine design. But as the weeks passed, Jiwoo noticed troubling signs. The assessors asked strange questions. They seemed fixated on human conflicts, on wars and disagreements. When Mirai showed them a painting by a Korean artist, they asked why humans felt the need to express emotions through physical media instead of direct neural transfer. When Park demonstrated a new reactor design, they nodded politely and compared it to technology their species had abandoned centuries ago. Finally, the day of judgment arrived. The human delegation stood once again in the evaluation chamber. The flowing water being, who they had learned was called an arbiter, addressed the assembled crowd. The evaluation of species 848, Humanity of Earth, is complete. The findings are as follows. A holographic display appeared above them, showing Earth and spreading outward to the solar system. Jiwoo felt his stomach tighten. Humanity demonstrates Tier 7 capabilities. They are classified as a developing species with significant evolutionary and cultural deficiencies. Specific findings include excessive tribalism, with persistent division along arbitrary lines of geography, appearance, and belief systems. Their decision-making processes are heavily influenced by emotion rather than logic. They waste substantial resources on internal conflicts and inefficient distribution systems. Their technology, while functional, is primitive compared to standard confluence baselines. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Kang's face had gone pale, but he maintained his composure. What does Tier 7 mean for us? He asked firmly. Tier 7 species are granted developmental observation status, the Arbiter explained. You are restricted to your home star system until reassessment. This reassessment will occur in no less than 500 standard years. During this time you may not claim territory beyond your solar system, and you may not interfere with higher-tier species operating in adjacent space. Adjacent space? Mirai spoke up, unable to contain herself. You mean near Earth? Correct. Under confluence law, unclaimed systems within 50 light-years of your homeworld are designated as a low-tier development zone. Higher-tier species may establish resource extraction operations in these systems, provided they do not directly interfere with your home system. Jiwoo felt cold. You're saying other species can take the star systems around us? They are not yours to take, the Arbiter said simply. You have not earned expansion rights. The Confluence recognizes only demonstrated capability and civilizational maturity. You have shown neither. The humans spent the next week on the station trying desperately to appeal the decision. They met with various alien representatives, but the responses were all similar. Polite condescension. Patient explanations. Some aliens were genuinely kind, offering advice on how humanity might improve over the coming centuries. Others were dismissive, treating the humans like children who didn't understand how the adult world worked. On their final day, Jiwoo found himself in an observation deck, staring out at the stars. He heard voices approaching and recognized them as belonging to members of a species called the Vren Collective. They were tall beings with chitinous exoskeletons, their faces featuring multiple eyes. The mineral surveys are complete, one Vren was saying to another. The third planet in the Proxima system has exceptional deposits. We should file a claim immediately. Any complications? The other asked. Some human settlements. A few thousand. We'll relocate them. It's all legal under low-tier zone protocols. They walked past without noticing Jiwoo in the shadows. He stood there for a long time, his hands clenched into fists. The journey back to Earth was quiet. Mirai stared at her datapad, at all the work she had done to present humanity's best face to the galaxy. Park sat with his head in his hands. Kang composed messages to Earth's government, trying to find the right words to explain their situation. Jiwoo called a meeting in the ship's conference room. "We need to talk about what happens next. What can happen?" Park said bitterly. "We're trapped. We're too primitive for them." "No," Jiwoo said firmly. "We're not primitive. We're underestimated. There's a difference." Kang looked up. "What are you suggesting?" "The confluence judges species by their standards. They have rules, bureaucracy, and rigid thinking. They've been at peace for so long they've forgotten what it means to struggle." Jiwoo pulled up a star chart. "They think they know what humanity is based on a 6-month evaluation. They don't know us at all." Mirai understood first. "You want to prepare." "I want us to be ready," Jiwoo said. "They've given us restrictions, but they've also given us time. They won't pay attention to a Tier 7 species. We can use that. Use it how?" Park asked. Jiwoo smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "By showing them that humans don't fit into their neat categories. They ranked us low because we're emotional, tribal, and aggressive. They think those are weaknesses." He paused. "They're about to learn they're wrong." The new dawn continued its journey home, carrying not just disappointment but something far more dangerous. Humanity had been judged and found wanting by a galaxy that didn't understand them. That galaxy was about to receive an education,